Hi, everybody. It's that time of week again where we bring back our normal group of idiots for the Rochester CCG's
One
Top
idiot.
Deck Heroes. As always, you have me, the millionaire, Sean O'Brien,
The
Shoes, the architect, and Kevin Broberg, the hasn't won anything in a while. Ooh. Oh, he won extended. That's technically a tournament.
uh,
So,
I've won lots of matches, lots of games in Swiss and stuff. Been consistently top 8ing.
so speaking of extended, Kevin, I heard you went to Buffalo for an event last weekend.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It ended up being only six players, but I mean, everyone had really cool decks, and I managed to win it with Fire BB Hood. I actually pulled off the my opponent's tapped out and it not very much life. Here's the Z-Maze Wheel Kick, take 2, I'll draw a card. Here's the Z-Maze Wheel Kick, take 2, I'll draw a card. That dream, and then I drew to turn thruster and killed him.
And you were off of fire, and you're running Z-Maze, Wheel Kick, Turn Thruster, any other fun goodies?
So I had Flash Lightning. I played several 6 damage Flash Lightnings where they could either block it and I get a momentum, or they take 6 damage, I draw a card, and I don't have any progressive difficulty.
And you get a momentum.
And then I get a momentum at the end of the turn, yeah. But mostly how I killed people was just Chasm Buster, Turn Thruster, and free damage pumps like Brooding and Hunger for Battle and Cursed Fate and stuff like that. And then I used For the Money and that Stitch Gamble to help keep my aggressive difficulty down, so I could string out a big long string of attacks.
Was there any room in the deck for Dragon Lifter?
No, there was not. I didn't think I was going to play enough. I didn't like the kicks enough. I like Z-Maze Wheel Kick just fine, but past that, I don't think anything was really good enough.
You could have played the Boot.
The boot sucks.
Das Boot.
What's wrong with the boot?
It sucks. It's like free speed. It's so slow.
What are you talking about?
The most exciting thing that was there, though, I mean, I played against a QB deck that was cool. It was like a good old Ice Slasher Zing deck, like the old Filbert decks. I played against a restack that unfortunately didn't have the greatest grasp on the dual symboling rules, so I think his deck was a little worse than he was hoping it would be. But then I played against Satoshi, and Satoshi had the dream draw, the nut draw, where he would play a weapon and then a Saranagiri to give his next 4 difficulty weapon multiple 2, and then follow it up with a Jigoku Banishment that would get the 2 momentum from its own response, and then he would multiple 2 it. And you'll see, that's like feline spike damage right there. And it gets its own momentum.
That's spicy.
I like that.
Awesome.
I'd like to see whoever built that deck tune it up a little bit and bring it to the next event.
Yeah, it was Jason's. I mean, it was quite good. I mean, it could use some work for sure. I think that I played all decks back in the day, and I was like, man, there's so many toys I didn't really see you draw. Did you have those? And I don't know if he knew all the toys it all has from back in those old sets. But I think, yeah, it's a sweet deck.
Nice. And then the day before the trip to Buffalo, we had our weekly event at Millennium Games in Rochester. Kevin brought the Duo deck out.
Yeah.
For its maiden voyage. How did it go?
Not so good. I don't know. It was.
Didn't you do
if
better
I was
than
being
me?
honest with myself, yeah, I spanked you. I mean, that's easy. If I was being honest with myself, like, I think that it did about as well as I would hope it would do. I actually went 2-1, losing to Goro in some close games, beating Ryu, and then I don't remember who I played in the last round.
May.
Not who I played in the second to last round. I thought I played you in like the second round.
Well, I played 3 rounds. I
I
thought it was the
know.
last round.
Okay, maybe you.
Yeah,
were.
because I was 2-0.
Did you play Force?
What was Force playing? I don't think so.
He's playing
Oh, who knows?
Maybe I played Ben. What was Ben playing?
For those of you who don't know, Duo is the least good of Team Elizabeth as far as playability goes.
I think that one time Church snuck into 8th place in teams with a Duo deck, and since then I have seen literally no success compared to a top 8 berth at Worlds from Shen last year, and Garrett getting second at a Pro Tour while trolling everyone horribly the entire day with Elizabeth. But the Duo deck, I mean, he's a pretty boring character. He doesn't do a lot. He's not like Gemini Man where you're like, haha, I have this nut draw, I have all this great stuff. But he lets you make every attack a mid and then block it with Skull Barrier. And that's basically how the deck didn't lose, was just Skull Barriering you all the time. And then it would either chip you out with Skull Barriers and Mistrals and all this other crap and recur them with Hekeshu of Death and Sightseeing all the day, or it would Finale Rosso and Devos you. And those just do a million damage, so you don't need more kills than that. But it was a janky deck, and I had to play really hard, and all my games took forever. The thing I didn't realize about Duo was that if you like slap them for 3 turns and they're like getting to the bottom of their deck, and you're Duo milling them every time, their entire deck is attacks. They will draw 17,000 attacks and kill you with them at the bottom of their deck every time.
Yeah,
that really sucks.
That's kind of how Duo works. I think he was an exercise in trying to make a mill deck, and for exercise they decided cheeseburger lifting because it didn't work out very well.
I might try it again with more Etwafalants to try to mill people 8 towards the bottom of their deck, and also just another like nice disruptive reversal. It was really cool just having all of my attacks be high attacks, and people would have low blocks, like cause they're afraid of Skullman, and I'm just like, it's a low block, doesn't do anything.
Yeah, this last weekend I played Snakes. I looked at Giggles' old list and said, I don't like it, and made up my own.
Plus, you didn't have Last Ditch Gamble, which, from what I saw him playing against Dave Wagner, didn't actually have a text box, so no big loss.
Also didn't have Cat Force or Lion Stance.
Now, I did find some suitable substitutions for some of those cards. I did... Lion Stance turned into the Sweet Baby Challenge, which isn't necessarily a replacement, but I think it's an excellent substitution to make
it's an excellent card.
Yeah, because it's really good if you happen to check another Sweet Baby Challenge. It's really good if you check a Kio's Jacket. I mean,
it's really good when you have a Kio's Jacket in play.
Oh,
you like block. Yeah.
I did change out to replace Cat Force. I added Intelligent and Shrewd. It's not nearly as efficient as it costs a momentum, and you have to play it during an enhanced step, and you have to make sure you have a foundation in your momentum, and it only turns the card face down instead of destroying it. So I felt like a lot of times when I was fighting over cards, that maybe it was setting me back a little too far. But all in all, I was still satisfied with it.
The big thing is it's a 1/5, and you can look at your blind momentum you get with Kio's Jacket.
Yeah, that's
I think that card, it's a bad rate, but for all that's, it's not a great card. It's not really efficient. The cards that people play against you that you want to turn face down are things like Kapoken Training that saves, if they Kapoken your Murakumo, it might save them 40 life. So you're pretty happy to have it.
Yeah. I was randomly short a Murakumo in my collection, so I did run the multiple 2 Shinko move.
Oh, Shinko, okay.
And I was pretty happy with that move. It let me kill a Clark deck because the moves just started bigger and did more. So I was pretty happy with that. And I swapped out the Goro card, the one that draws you card, for was it Toy Touch?
Perhaps.
Yeah, possibly.
Yeah.
The Felicia 2/2.
The 2/2 bounce a foundation, good things happen.
Yep.
Yeah, Toy Touch.
I was kind of lukewarm about that card, honestly. I felt like a lot of times I didn't want to bounce the foundation to get the speed and damage, and a lot of times I didn't have 2 momentum because of some of the other tricks the deck was doing. I had to spend more momentum than the original version. So I will probably switch that back to Jurition and draw some more cards.
Were you playing any skill barriers?
I was playing 1 Skull Barrier.
Yep.
And I had the misfortune of I was going to cancel Finisher from Giggles, and he Silent Assassined me, and out of 3 cards, got my Skull Barrier. So I was going to play it and then cancel his next move.
Classic.
I was very upset.
That's what Giggles does.
Giggles luck.
He remembered to put Silent Assassin in that deck. I'm surprised.
So all said and done, I want to tweak the deck a little more. I'm not sure it's the deck I'm going to run at anything, but it was kind of fun to play top tier for once.
Now,
Hughes, what did you play?
I played the promo Ryu that we all got at Gen Con. He's really, really fun. Stacking your deck is really dumb. I played him off of Holy for this week. I had played the deck once before, and I kind of just tossed cards into the deck just to play him out because I was excited to have Ryu. I made a few slight changes to it. Its main thing is it's Valiant Assault and other punches. So that way you can keep going, just keep stacking your checks and getting like +2 to 3 damage. And then finishing people with either Shoryudan with its multiple after you've played a bunch of attacks, or playing multiple rain flushes and pumping those. Like, when you get down to 1 to 2 cards left in your hand, and you do rain flushes multiple and do his things, that's 21 damage. So, it's a lot. So, rain flush with him is really fun. The good build is pretty strong. You have good 6 checks, and I also made use of Sweet Baby Challenge. So I'd stack a 6 check on top of my deck, check it, pick it back up, so I could stack a 6 again, and then get momentum for my multiple.
That's pretty good.
Like, it's a really, really fun deck. I also have an all build that I finally put together that's a little bit more consistent. I talked about it a while back. That'll be fun to play, but we don't have a tournament this week because we have a convention to do.
We'll be at RockCon,
Yeah.
and we'll discuss RockCon a little bit later on.
Yep.
Next topic we're going to discuss is we got some PTC deck lists up finally, and we got a couple decks we want to discuss. I'm going to go a little out of order here, and we're going to skip to Dimitri.
Oops.
Let's see, what place did he come in? I just want to
6th, I think, or is it
sixth
5th?
place. Dimitri was ran at the PTC by my close friend Mark Wisniewski. He goes by Slam on the forums. He's actually hosting a PTC at the end of this month, so everybody go out and make sure you pre-order your tickets so he doesn't have to shell out $400 up front and hopefully make his money back. Please and thank you. And so this deck is off of Life. That was a noise. So Dimitri, nothing really surprising here, do you think, guys?
No. Nothing out of the box yet. It seemed like people took things. A lot of them seemed like decks that were comfortable that weren't running a lot of the cards that cycled out. Like, I'm not surprised that first and second place was 7 hand size meta. And the Dimitri deck himself, because there's a couple of numbers with it. I don't have the list actually in front of me, but from what I remember of it, it looks like Angels from a year ago almost.
No, it doesn't.
No?
Don't lie to me. It looks nothing like Angels. I mean, it's playing
there's
throws
weaker-
and it's got.
Yeah, it throws into a multiple finisher. It's just that this multiple is technically a lot weaker.
Well, most things are weaker than
Yeah.
Divine Tribulation. I mean, except for Feline Spike.
I mean, I think that where Angels would just play Divine Tribulation, like the Lunar Catapult into Spinning Necro Driver into Death Valley Face Plan into Divine Tribulation, and like that string can both pass all the control checks because of Cyrus' ability on 3 foundations, and because of Stacker Omnials and incidental burns and chip damage, that can actually be a lethal string on turn 2 or 3. Yeah, under perfect situation, you know?
Yeah.
Or if your opponent just disrespects you completely. This deck, I mean, there's 4 surveyors in this deck.
Yeah.
This deck isn't trying to go for the turn 2 donks. Ever. It just doesn't happen.
So it gets rid of the bull crap that Angels shouldn't be able to do in the first place. I'd still say like Dimitri's a balanced version of Angels. Like, that's not something.
I just think that's not a useful comparison to make. Like, Dimitri turns one of your cards off every turn. Angels have 4 copies of an action card that turn off one of your cards a turn, and then once they draw that action card, the Stacker Angel, then they get a second action card that turns them into crazy Omnial mode, where they blank your whole staging area.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think the 2 decks run on completely different modes. I mean, the Dimitri deck seems like kind of a long haul kind of deck.
Yeah, this is a defense first, chip damage throw game, like
You
grind
care
you
when
out.
you get there.
I mean,
Yeah.
I guess just a lot of Angels players played the deck very differently from what you're describing, because what you're describing to me there is how most Angel decks played against me. This really
But they
dirtily
didn't.
defensive deck that just played chip throws and played the long game.
But they didn't have any way to recur those throws. They didn't make any effort to say, if I'm going to draw 6 non-attack cards and you're at 3 life, I'm going to have something that'll let me actually close the game out now.
Hmm. I mean,
Whereas this deck, if it says, okay, I'm in a great defensive position, I'm way ahead of you on board or whatever, there's nothing you can do to stop me from hitting you with a Moon Tracer every turn, or
Yeah.
a negative stolen every turn.
I mean, I remember when I ran the Angels and won at Nationals. I mean, it played a fairly defensive game, but you still needed a hand at some point that was just good enough. And I feel like this deck doesn't suffer from that because it can just chug along. Oh crap, I drew 6 foundations. Well, I'll just Surveyor 2 attacks back to my hand and bop you again. Or, I mean, presuming you have 2 Surveyors. If you have 1 Surveyor, you're just going to bop people every turn. And granted, the throw hate's a lot better now than it used to be. I mean,
A lot better.
Well, the throw hate's a lot better, but at the same time, the throw deck is a lot less, like, it isn't like 3 turns slower than another deck.
Mhm.
Like back in the day with Angels, if you were gonna say, I'm gonna hit you for 3 damage on half each turn, they're gonna kill you before you're done chipping them to death. I think that this deck is a lot closer, like, defensively speaking, this deck is a lot closer to, like, staying above water against an aggro deck these days
Mhm.
than Angels were back in the day.
Yeah, I think in today's meta, I think the Angels would have a very difficult time competing. Because I think it would take too long now to set up. Especially when you got to play what are effectively 4 difficulty actions until you Animate Fusion a marginal advantage.
Yeah, I think that this deck, it's a life deck that's playing damage reduction and throws and all that stuff. But I think like the way it plays, I think this plays out significantly differently than the way Angels do, despite the superficial resemblance.
Now, that being said, I think someone could run this deck like the Angels and still see a certain amount of success. I mean, I wasn't there. I'm not sure how Mark played this, but it definitely wasn't. It doesn't, based on what I see, it doesn't look like it had the same option that the Angels did, where you can just try to kill somebody on turn 2 or 3.
Yeah, and a lot of times I don't even know that's not often not even an option you have. It's just like a nut draw that you have. This deck, maybe like you get triple Darkside Master on turn 2, and you check running 5s, and you just get there that way. But like I remember the game we played, some time ago when I first put Whiplash Buster in Angels, and you said, I'm gonna kind of recklessly go out on you on turn 2, and put you at like 6 life, and like, yeah, you're not gonna backswing me, and then I drew like 2 attacks and got you from there. This deck's not gonna do that.
Yeah, it seems at best a mid-range deck, but all said and done a long range.
Yeah, I think it's certainly at home in the long games, and I think that Dimitri is a great character, especially if you're sick of getting ever hopeful. It's challenging to ever hopeful Dimitri. You can do it if you can actually block one of his slow dinky throws and then cheat in your staging area and then get off one ever hopeful on your turn. But if you're sick of getting like attacking in and getting your whole board bounced, Dimitri's going to take care of that any of them that they play as forms and put them face down in their staging area.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure there's a lot of damage reduction, and he can spot answer prototypes or improve designs or any kind of damage hump in your opponent's staging area. So it might be very difficult to put together an offense to kill him.
Yeah, and the one thing also I like about him with playing with throws, a lot of the throw hate is onboard tricks, and he could just turn them off, like Ophidiopodia,
Yeah.
Kapokin, and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Turn off the Fulfill the Battle so they can't keep playing Leaf Shield forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like right now, and I think this is what Dimitri does better, I think much better than other long game decks, is unlike a lot of other long game decks, your opponent has to care what you're doing. It's not like, against an all deck where the all player just keeps stacking foundations and your opponent can continue doing their own thing and then eventually someone's going to win. Dimitri, he's always doing something to you. Either he's flipping your stuff, he's gonna hit you with a throw, even if it's just a little dinky guy, and it almost becomes like a resource management game for your opponent on top
Oh,
of
definitely.
having to play UFS.
I mean, I think a lot of games UFS are resource management plus everything else. Like that's a big part of the game for
I
sure.
feel like it's a lot heavier with Dimitri.
And also, can I just say I love the 2x Search Snake in this deck. I know I played Jeremy Ray a few weeks ago and just like snuck in Leaf Shield hits on people. Got really cheeky like that, where it's like, Jeremy Ray lets you pick up a card after any attack deals damage. So you just go Leaf Shield, and the rest of the deck is high and mid attacks. It's actually all high attacks and then Head Crush are the rest of the attacks in the deck. So you just go Leaf Shield, and your opponent's not ready for a 2-speed low for 3. They only have high blocks, so you just get in 3 damage, pick it back up.
Well, isn't Search Snake also the attack that your opponent has to tap two face down?
No,
No.
that's a crawling.
Oh, it's crawling strike.
Yeah.
Maybe.
No,
I think you actually described Snake Slam.
Oh,
Tap
okay.
two face down.
Now, Search Snake is
But
just
Search
the
Snake-
multiple 2.
It goes to your 1 face up if it hits, and then you
Yeah.
can get it back for 1 card.
Yeah, it seems like this deck really can trade cards out of its momentum very, very well.
Yeah.
Which,
Yeah, it uses the
Was it-
other end of Snake Man's support, where he has inevitability.
all right, that's enough about Dimitri right now. Congratulations once again to Mark Wisniewski, taking him to 6th place. We're going to move on to Iori, the deck that came in 2nd place at this tournament.
This deck is terrifying.
One thing Kevin and I mentioned, we were discussing this over dinner, is it's a very short deck list.
Yes, lots of
Yeah.
flip-ups.
That's a good way to put it.
Judges would really like deck checking this deck.
Is it
Yeah, I
too
think
few
this is-
cards?
Hmm?
Oh no, or sorry. I was taking the sarcastic end, and I thought it was actually too few cards.
No, it's
No, it's actually exactly 60 plus character. I thought it was more than that for some reason.
Mhm.
But this is actually the deck that has the most 4-ofs and the least 1 and 2-ofs I've actually ever seen succeed at a tournament. I think. Usually, people will say, well, I might as well split up my 1 difficulty cards and play like 1 and 2 of these, like 1 egotistical or something. And this deck just doesn't have any of it. It's all 4-ofs, except for 3 copies of Dream Thief, 3 copies of Plum Eater, 3 copies of Yatagarasu, and 3 copies of Nivose. Everything else, 4-of.
Well, I think Brett Blaze's Iori deck that top aided at our PTC in Rochester was a similar thing.
Okay, I might have just missed it.
I'll check while we're talking. Like, it's an interesting
So-
thing because I'm pretty sure they're pretty similar decks because I played against Brett twice in our PTC, and this deck is terrifying with what it can do on turn 2.
Yeah, once again, this deck doesn't have anything that's really surprising for me in it, looking at the list. Revoke
Yeah, I think it's
is one of the best cards in the format. Iori, and then there's a bunch of Iori only / might as well be Iori only cards. Between the guitar, Yatagarasu,
yeah. I think
Yaotome.
fully a third of this deck is Iori only or virtually Iori only. Like Violent, no one's playing Violent but Iori. Yaotome, no one but Iori and 7 hands that's mature before she rotated can play that card.
A card in here that I think is going to see more and more play as time goes on is Plum Eater.
Oh, Plum Eater's incredible.
It's I think that card was kind of disrespected when it first came out. If I remember correctly, I think Mishima Zaibatsu Leader was still legal, and that was a much better way to fight over momentum because you got one of your own.
Yeah, those cards aren't even in the same league.
No.
But even I know, as the first deck I remember it in, I think the first decks I remember it in were still post rotation. But even before then, Mishima Zaibatsu Leader didn't have Death or Evil, so this might have been a valid choice back then. Even.
Mm-hmm. So it looks like a pretty standard Iori deck. Wants to play all the attacks on turn 2, have all the speed by turn 2 or 3, and you're just dead.
Yeah, and it's not even like completely one dimensional either. Like you see Ophidiophobia, Iori's guitar, several great block modifiers all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
powerful assassin revoke. Like it's not like you can just like tap it or tip it over and it'll die.
No, and I think that's a huge improvement over other builds of this deck. Is I think a little more thought was put into, well, what if I can't kill them on turn 2?
Well, the big thing is minus Brett's stat list, which I've got it here, and he has all those things too. He's got the guitars, he's got Ophidiphobias and stuff to keep himself alive. He's got some flames restored to tap down stuff. He's got a couple of 2-ups.
Do you want to post that in the chat so I can look at it?
Yes.
Do you know what card I really wish this deck had?
Which one?
Team Yagami. I'd like to see a copy or 2 of that available.
Brett's list has 2 copies of it.
Because I think, if you're going for a kill, but your opponent has some sort of super annoying thing that can stop you, that extra stun too might be enough to get you there. Or if your opponent's holding on to a really good block and playing to block your Yatagarasu or what have you, or whatever nonsense you're trying to do.
But yeah.
I'd like to see 1 or 2 copies of that, but maybe that might actually just make the deck worse. Who knows?
But going back to this, where we're like minus Brett's list out of the PTC, the last Iori that I think we had seen top was the one that's banned. And before that, a lot of these defensive cards, like Ophidiophobia, all that stuff, they just didn't exist. So that's the big thing, is now they exist. So now he has survivability, which is why I think the 7-hand size is good again.
I mean, I don't think he was ever bad, honestly. I think he was just kind of ignored.
Yes. I agree with that, too.
I'm not sure Reformed Scientist is a 4 of.
I could try changing that. I mean, I think that there's certainly plenty of Breaker, and I'm actually this is Stefan's list, Michigan player. We're actually looking at 2 Michigan players today, and I know the Michigan player. I know Michigan. Their crew really likes the card Hanya, and this card cancels Hanya.
Fair enough.
So that might be highly valuable to them. Although at that point, you got to wonder, why are we playing 4 guitars and 0 homemade explosives? Another, A grade card. Certainly a card you expect to see in a lot of decks that can play it.
Yeah, I mean, the asset slots are kind of a toss-up because Evil has a lot of good assets right now, I think.
Yeah.
So, I almost feel like we're throwing darts at a wall. Like, oh, we should have had 2 Team Yagamis. Oh, no, we should have had homemade explosives.
Yeah, I think you can pretty much second guess any deck, and any deck, any decision. You can second guess it. You can find probable improvements, but it's all hindsight at the end of the day. And until you can design something better to take to in the first place, we're just what's it called, Monday night quarterbacking. Is that the expression?
Yeah, I think so. And well, all said and done, results are proven that this deck obviously has to work at some degree if it made it all the way to second place in the PTC.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think if you have any sense of what you need to be doing in a game of UFS, this is a 7-hand size deck with 18 attacks, and if you look at any of the attacks sideways, they kind of all start at 10 damage. Tsubaki, if you combo it, is 9 damage with just Iori's ability. Yamisogi, 8 damage if you don't combo it, just with the Iori's ability. Yaotome, 5 damage, but then the desperation he puts it up to like 8 if you've either mulliganed or landed an attack that game. Yatagarasu starts at 8, burns for 6. Nivose does just infinite damage.
It's Nivose.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even if you're playing a 6-hand size character, you still want to block a lot of these moves.
Yeah, I played a Chaos Iori at Nationals, and like I killed Goro in 1 turn, like very easily. Like I overkilled Goro in 1 turn. And he has 35 life, he had damage redux on board, and I just fucking blew through it like it was nothing.
So, Hughes, any thoughts on this Iori deck?
Unfortunately, I have the other list up, not his. I like the deck. I have been saying for a while that I thought Iori was still a good thing. We almost were going to have Giggles bring Iori to Worlds, and then that thread started about Snake Man. And there was
you wanted to prove him wrong?
Yeah, there was no other choice. Like, I showed Giggles the thread before it got closed. He's like, no, I'm playing Snake Man.
And he almost took it.
Yep.
I mean, you can't, unless you're from Calgary, you can't disrespect Snake Man. Maybe it's because they don't have any snakes up there. It's too far north.
Alright.
And hey, Garrett. I know Garrett talked to me either between games or before his match, and he said he thought I was gonna get donked. And in game 2, he got donked too, for that matter.
All right, so moving on to our main story tonight. One of the threads on the forum that's been getting some views lately is the 60 card deck, or the 59 plus 1 card deck, or the 64 card deck, or whatever.
Or the 78 card deck.
Whatever you want to do to get the deck down to the size that you want. Now, if you talk to people, there's some people say you must run a 60 card deck, 59 plus character. It's the only way you'll ever see the things you want to see. And then if you go up to R&D in Calgary, they'd be like, no, you got to go out and get 72 cards. Don't you know? And so one of the things I want to discuss tonight with you guys is how do you determine what the size of your deck is going to be? And I have some thoughts prepared on this. And I know when I build a deck, it usually starts off as this complete, utter 70-card mess in UFS Ultra.
You only started 70 cards on Ultra? You have way more discipline.
Well, no, I just when I start approaching 70 cards, I just sort of stop.
Oh, when I approach 70 foundations, I usually have gotten to the bottom of the list by then.
And then so, a lot of times my deck I don't have like a set number that I fall to. I kind of settle on a number that I think feels right. Because there have been decks I've built that must be a 59 plus character deck. A couple years back, we ran a deck called the Omnial Summoning System.
Frantic Search Omnial deck. Oh, that was so good times.
But that deck had to be 59 cards plus character. You needed Omnial turn 2 every time.
You were certainly trying to Omnial turn 2 every time. That was the goal of the deck, was to Omnial turn 2 every time.
Mm-hmm.
You monsters.
And hey man,
there are other decks that you could be running that could require more and more cards. I remember when I won Canadian Nationals, I was very happy that my Super Skullman deck ran just over 70 cards, because there are games I would have just lost because I would have ran out of cards. I remember a match against a Keelik where my only out was having a bigger deck and researching the past to put my deck back on top, my discard pile back on top of my deck so he would exhaust himself. Because Keelik was the fairest of the fair.
That character was so fair. Where was your Pommel Smash, Sean O'Brien? Come on.
I didn't run Pummel Smash in that. It was not a punch.
Oh man. Good. That was back when Kaplow was legal. That's when you had all the toys.
Mm-hmm. Good times were had.
Matt, do you have any thoughts?
I have a lot of thoughts because I have yet to actually post on that thread. Mainly because by the time I first saw it, it was a gigantic monster, and I didn't feel like reading through it all.
Hey, it's not even. It's barely even 2 pages long, even now.
Oh, really? I thought it was bigger.
I think you might be thinking of a different thread.
I probably, yeah, that might be it. But anyways, like, I've always done 60 cards plus character. The original reason was a long time ago when I first started this. I was technically told that your character didn't count as part of your deck, so you had to make 60 cards at minimum, and then your character was separate. And it wasn't until like a year or two later when like the rules started to get updated, and we like all actually looked at the rules for the first time. It's like, oh, it says search your deck and put your character into play. I was like, oh, yeah, it's actually part of it. So so a big portion is I'm stuck on the idea of my character doesn't count as part of my deck. And then also,
and it certainly makes things more symmetrical when you can have 20 foundations, 40 foundations, or 20 attacks, 40 foundations, or less than that.
Yeah,
that's
roughly
usually the habit these days.
But yeah, that was the other thing. It's like I'm used to other card games where you play with like exactly 60 or whatnot, and just having that 1x would just bother me. Especially since one of the only other card games I played that allowed you to go higher than 60, it's still your deck, because of a rules thing in it, had to be an even number of cards. So being 61 would just bother me. There was a reason. You had to have light side. You had to have light side and dark side cards.
Okay, that game. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But
So
I
I think
see
there's
reasons for going higher. Garrett's was a good reason. He has an insane amount of card draw. He makes
the actual
multiple,
Garrett deck.
yeah, the actual Garrett deck. He makes multiple extra control checks a turn, and puts stuff directly into play. And just has just like there was good reason. I still think his deck was a little bit too big, but
Couldn't have been that too big at one.
yeah,
Yeah, man. That scoreboard for you armchair quarterback. That's the expression armchair quarterbacking.
Yeah.
I think there is. I mean, I don't know if there are many people who are steadfast, like who actually will engage you in a conversation and steadfastly advocate for you should only ever play 60 cards. That it's like it's completely wrong to imagine anything differently. I think one of the biggest reasons to play more cards is basically that you can do it for free, because like let's say you don't. Like you're playing like 3 of all your attacks. I see people do this, and if you're playing with 3 of all your attacks, none of your attacks are better than each other. You're equally happy to see any of them, and so you could play like 4 of all your attacks and add an extra like 25 cards to your deck, and you'd have like the same chance of drawing any of those attacks. The proportions would still be equal, and so if it's free to add cards to your deck, then you might want to say that. Late in the game, I want to be able to get to a point where my staging area has 4 copies of the Land of Makai and tap 4 of my opponent's things. Once we're staring at each other for 45 minutes, I want to be able to have this late game trump where I can tap, all copies of 4 different cards in both staging areas. I think that's one of the areas that's really kind of counterintuitive for a lot of people, because you come from Magic, and you always play a 60-card deck because you always want to draw as many dual lands as possible, or as many of like whatever overpowered card you built your deck around, and your whatever synergies, because you only draw 1 card a turn. It's much more important to maximize each of those draws. In UFS, there's a lot more replaceableness between your cards in a lot of cases.
Mm.
I don't know. There are still certain cards in UFS where I want to see all copies of them as fast as possible. Namely,
Absolutely.
like Brain Flush. Like
That's why you run 8 hand size.
Yeah,
Hey, that deck wasn't a 60-card deck though,
it was 61.
was it?
Yeah, 60 plus character.
Okay.
No, I
thought
may have. I'm actually not 100% sure, because I know Jack and I worked at the deck. It may be 61 plus character, because Jack and I worked on it the night before the PTC, and I remember just saying at like 4:30 in the morning, "Screw it, I want to go to bed. Add the extra card," and then I never touched it before Gen Con, so that might be it.
So I mean, it sounds like the long story short is there really isn't a correct answer.
yes,
Oh, not at all.
It boils down to your preference,
Yeah.
and what your priorities are in the deck.
I
Oh, your Jiffany deck was actually exactly minimum size.
Huh.
Good for you.
Okay. I guess
Unless
maybe
someone cheated.
no. It may have been I ended up taking it out. All right, I needed to make a sideboard. I think that was the reason. I didn't make a sideboard yet. I'm like, oh, okay, this card can just go to the side.
Yeah, and absolutely, like every reason that anyone talks about in this whole conversation, in either direction, it's never an absolute statement that like for
Yeah.
every deck, you always wanted to play more cards or less cards. And if someone says that, they're almost certainly just wrong.
Like, I don't think there's definitely, I agree, there's never an absolute. I would lean more towards most of the time you should be 60 plus character or 59 plus character.
Yeah,
but
actually, we want to talk about bad reasons to play more cards.
Well, let's
I
let
think
Hughes finish his thought.
Well, yeah,
Okay.
well, yeah, it's like more than that, and also like because what I'll do is like, if for some reason I feel the need, like I just need that +1, that 2 cards, just find a way to put it in your sideboard. But I think that like there's always gonna be like there's the Garrett deck, or if you want to, if you know your deck's gonna be going for that long haul game, and there's an actual chance of you milling out, that could be a reason to play a couple extra cards. Or
Well, I
if
think
mill is a prevalent thing in the format.
Yeah, I think milling it's really different in UFS than it is in a lot of games.
Mhm.
If you can build a deck that operates on 10 foundations, it's virtually impossible to make your deck like naturally,
Mhm.
because you can just review step your foundations, and you know you have your remove from game pile plus your staging area plus your hand plus your card pool has to get it, like that has to be all of the cards in your deck. Like 60 cards have to be in those 4 zones before you deck out.
Hmm.
And like if you have 20 cards left in your deck and discard pile combined, then you still have like you still have 10 more cards to pull out into those other 4 zones before you're going to deck out. Like if you cycle into 20 cards left in your deck, you still have like 2 turns of
Alright.
almost anything you can do before you'll get milled.
All right. Well, if you're an 8-card hand size,
Oh yeah, certainly. I mean, yeah,
because this
But
is what actually happened to me against Slam in one of my games. I
yeah.
milled. He actually successfully milled me out because I didn't pick up on what he was actually doing until it was far too late.
Yeah.
And after I beat him in game 3, he showed me he'd actually like boarded out 5 attacks to put in 5
Yep.
high block cards that was in his sideboard to block Rain Flush.
Yeah.
I think usually by the time you end up playing against someone in that situation, they've become desperate.
Mhm.
And so that may work on you once, but you're gonna be watching for it by the second game, and then that strategy is kind of irrelevant.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Now, Kevin was about to mention bad reasons to have more than 60 cards in your deck. Because there are plenty of good reasons, but there are some really bonehead reasons to try to put extra cards into your deck.
Yeah, and we're not trying to say you're stupid if you use these reasons, but you should really think hard about the veracity of these reasons if you're telling yourself or if someone tells you these reasons, whether or not you should believe them. The first one that comes to mind is just picking a number and going with it. For no better reason that like, oh, I like 60, I like 64, I like 72.
64 is a great number.
You know, it's like 2 to the third is 8 squared. Like that's cool. That's like it's nifty, symmetrical. But it's just you can just find if you look hard enough, you can find a reason to go either more or less than that. It's somewhere out there.
Yeah, I think locking yourself into any specific number, be it 60, 64, 74, I just don't think that's good deck building. You've already restricted yourself.
Yeah.
Um,
The other one I had in mind was kind of just saying that like I can't like that just all of my cards are precious to me. I like all of my cards too much. That like, oh, I have 72 cards and that's okay, you know, I just really like all of my cards. And because the thing is that every card you add to your deck, every card you play over 60 is less copies of all of the cards that aren't that card in your deck. You know, if you have a 72 card deck with 4 copies of Ultimate Undead or Templar, say, or Revoke actually is a card you would actually always want to draw. You always want to draw Revoke. Then every card you play over 60 is a fractionally smaller chance you draw Revoke because you only draw, say, 7 cards a turn. There can only be so many Revokes in that hand.
mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, if you're running a deck where there's a bunch of cards you always want to draw, then that may be a situation where you want to thin your deck out. If you're in a situation where you've got 70 cards and you're always happy to draw any of them, then either you're cheating, the format's broken, or you're running 41 ofs in your Garrett Brett.
Hey, I have my Sasquatch deck, and I'm, you know, except for when I'm playing Crimson Barrage in my Sasquatch deck, and so I'm sometimes like, if I draw 3 Crimson Barrages, I'm like kind of not so happy about it. But for the most part, if I ever want to draw attacks and I draw attacks, I'm pumped because my attacks are all awesome. And if I ever draw foundations and I want to draw foundations, I'm pumped because all my foundations are awesome. And one of the cool things about it is that I'm not playing very many copies of any of them. So any of them that kind of are like either unique or they don't really work well in multiples, I just won't very often draw multiples of them.
Mm-hmm.
And if I were playing more cards, I could play more copies of any of them and play a bigger deck and still have that same, more or less, I don't even know what point I'm trying to make here. It's a fun deck, though.
So, like, long story short, to wrap this topic up, because we are starting to run a little short on time, 59 plus 1 card deck, it's a toss-up. It's, you know, whatever you need your deck to be.
Just go with 60 plus 1. Start from there.
Yeah, you can only be so wrong if you make a whole lot of hard choices to trim your deck down to the smallest it can be and to agonize over every, 1 versus 2 versus 3 of every card, and pick only the most important engine pieces to play 4 of,
Hmm.
you can only be so wrong, and it'll help you grow as a player to make all those hard choices too.
Like,
And even as you make those trimming and adding choices, your deck's going to fluctuate in size. I mean, I've had decks start out as 70, go down to 60, ended up settling around 63, 64. It's wherever the deck feels good for you.
what's weird for me with UFS Ultra, whenever during Total Justice Gaming last week, they wanted me to put together a pauperish list of Mega Man, and I built it during the show and came to exactly 60 plus character in 5 minutes without even editing the deck. And whenever I'm rushed to build a deck, that happens a lot. Because I did that today again too when I was throwing the all list of Ryu together. Whenever I make a turbo deck, the minimum I get is 85, 86 cards. And then I have to spend 2 weeks trimming the deck down to 40 plus character.
Wow. When I built my Turbo BB Hood deck, that took me 20 minutes. And I was I had 15 or 20 more cards that I was thinking about playing,
Well,
but it wasn't that hard to slim them down to say,
Kevin,
oh, I don't want 3 Robot Masters.
I built 2 decks for Turbo, and they've won both Turbo qualifiers.
You built more than 2. I know, because I borrowed your Oil Man deck, and that deck was terrible.
Okay. I'm sorry you didn't know how to play it.
I did. I got Ice Slashed on turn 3 after losing the roll. Can't beat that.
All right, let's throw down a challenge gauntlet right here. And you heard it first on Top Deck Heroes. At the Rochester 2K, we are planning to have a Turbo side event.
Woo!
Matt Hughes, you have to play Oil Man.
No?
Yep.
No!
You said
The
that
format's
Kevin lost
completely
because he didn't know how to
changed.
play. Obviously, you know how to play it.
There was 300 less cards in the format. That's why he was better. You could actually, if you had moderate knowledge of the 250 cards that existed in the format at the time, you could guess what your opponent was going to play perfectly every turn and screw up their field.
How many Ice Slashes do you play in Mega Man?
The all build of Mega Man?
Yes.
All
I
of
would
them.
probably play 3.
Well, he was playing exactly 1. And so I correctly did not name it, and it wouldn't have mattered if I did, because I got killed on turn 3.
So you heard it here first. Hughes calls out Kevin for not knowing how to play Oil Man, won't play it himself.
It's
Moving
a completely
on
different
next-
format.
Nope, new topic.
All
Hey,
right,
man, next topic.
sure.
We're talking announcements?
So let's talk about the 2K. Some big updates that we're pretty excited to announce. The venue is set. We've got product ordered. There's going to be an exclusive playmat at the event. So it's going to be super exclusive. It's going to say the event name right on it. We're growing up. We're in the big boy leagues now.
All right.
So if you want a
Could
copy
be
of
like
the...
a Star City event or something.
So yeah. So if you want the super special tournament exclusive playmat, you better show up. Because it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, what we're really looking for to make this a success, it's the first 2K we've done in UFS, is, I'd like enough people to show up to cover the cost of the venue, and I'd be pretty happy. I'd like to have at least 40. And I think for the prizes that are being given out, 40 is not an unreasonable number.
Yeah.
And right now I'm in the very early planning stages for some future events of this type.
We know it's going to be amazing, so we're just assuming that it's going to blow everyone out of the water, and we want to spread the joy of UFS and big cash prizes.
I'm considering a city out west and a city in the southeast. So if you want us to come out to your town and hold a 2K, get some asses in them seats.
Yep.
Hey, you're thinking about holding one in the up north too, aren't you?
In the,
Or was that plan kind of rejected?
No, I don't think we're going to go for the frozen north. I don't think there's enough players in Canada to justify a 2K.
But the stipulation to make it worthwhile.
Oh, yes. The 2K in Calgary where you're racing for pinks. If you lose, the person just gets your deck.
No, you just if you lose, when they cut to top 8, they collect everyone else's deck and they just ship them back to you. And then everyone but the winner gets their deck shipped off. They get a box for their trouble if they make top 8 or whatever, but they lose their deck.
Yeah, no, we're not going to do that. So, go out, grow UFS, because I want to have, these kinds of events maybe 3 or 4 times a year, and I'd like to come to your town. Next week, we're bringing back the Q&A show, so submit your questions about UFS, about our opinions on things, even though they're not always any good. You can submit them
Hey,
on our.
speak for yourself, bud. My opinions are great.
You can put them on our Facebook page. You can email anybody at Rochester CCG, Hughes, Clint, myself, Scott Gaines. You can post them in the forums, and we're going to try to once again answer as many questions as possible.
Message me on Facebook at 3 in the morning, because that's usually what happens.
And so we'd like to do that again for next week. And time to wrap things up with some announcements. Upcoming events. The PTC in Michigan we mentioned earlier is coming up on Warren. According to the forums, only 2 people have pre-registered. So if you plan to go out and register. Because if you don't, you're screwing over the tournament organizer who has to pay for the $400 kit up front. And not many people just have $400 lying around that they can spend. So pre-register.
Yeah,
Pre-register
Kevin.
early, pre-register often. Matt Hughes, don't forget to pre-register.
Take me in your car and give me a spot on the floor to stay.
How about someone in Michigan finds you a spot on the floor to stay because you ask them? If anyone in Michigan is watching this and is hosting guests for floor space, Matt Hughes is officially begging you to stay at your floor.
That'll do.
And we'll somehow get him out there, even if
Yep.
you have to throw him into a flat rate box and send him in the post.
I don't fit in a flat rate box.
But if that is what happens and you do place an order with RochesterCCG.com, you will get free shipping on that order that we package Matt Hughes with. Heads up, if you want to host him, you can get free shipping on one order from RochesterCCG.com.
Oh darn, I forgot to put holes in the box. So get out there, pre-register for that. The next following month in October is the Poughkeepsie PTC down in Poughkeepsie, New York, at a new venue. Champion Card Games. I finally changed that in the schedule.
It's Champion Card Collector.
Champion's all you need to know.
This totally says Dragon's Den on the schedule, dude.
No, it does not. I have the schedule in front of me. It says Champion Card Games. I may have gotten it wrong, but it does not say Dragon's Den anymore. So you must be looking at an old schedule. So show up for that event. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm sure the adorable Tim Keefe-san will be there. You'll be able to complain to him about cards you don't like in the format, like Ever Hopeful.
Because he
nothing
loves
else.
hearing
You can only
that.
complain about Ever Hopeful.
And nothing else, because the rest of the format's great.
I definitely like the format. That's a topic I want to have for another week. Just the health of the game.
Perhaps maybe we should issue our own State of the Game.
Oh.
Whoa! After the Poughkeepsie PTC, a week later, is the Winnipeg PTC. So if you want to go oot and a boot and drive up to Winnipeg and be in the cold, because they get like 3 feet of snow that time of year, don't you know? Head on up to Winnipeg. Clint Badger is going to be running that event. He's super awesome. You should buy product from him, and it'll be a good time if you like spending weird, funny money. And just a week after that is the Rochester CCG 2K in Rochester, New York on the 7th of November. Please come out for that. Prove that these events can be successful. And remember, we got free beer, exclusive playmats, and some goodies that we can't even announce yet.
I can't wait.
Secret to everybody.
I don't even know what those goodies are.
That's why they're such a secret. Shh. Next item is the Nashville PTC in December. So if you live up in the north like us and the weather's turned really crappy, head down to Nashville. It's going to be nice and sunny, and there's going to be lots of country music and bluegrass and banjos and hopefully beer.
I mean, they've certainly got beer and whiskey. Like, there's not much else to do but on there. So.
Should just every UFS event have beer, according to you, Sean?
Yes.
I mean, it's not a bad idea.
I mean, you never hear anybody say, oh man, free beer, I hate everything about you.
It's not like we're like Project M's for Super Smash Brothers, where 13-year-olds are winning any tournaments these days. Although maybe one day,
Yeah.
then they'll get kicked out. Then their parents will take them out of the game when they see Pity for a Traitor. Oh, too bad.
Or that like 17 plus on our packs.
Yeah.
Pity for a Trader, Splendor Love. Get those kids right out of our game.
We don't need them.
So I completely skipped a topic, guys. Can we rewind a little bit?
No.
What topic?
I completely forgot to talk about RockCon this weekend in Rochester.
Oh yeah. I
don't know
still
how
don't know
we
where
did-
that is. I know it's in Rochester.
RockCon will be at the Theater on the Ridge in Rochester on West Ridge Road in Kodak Park this weekend. Rochester CCG is going to be there. We're demoing 3 days and 3 games. 3x3 was 9. We're going to be demoing UFS. We're going to be demoing Chaosmos. And the new game that has even yet to come out, Top Gun. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Stop on by and see us. The vendor hall is going to be open Friday from 5 to 10, Saturday from 10 to 7, and Sunday from 10 to 4.
You can join us to buzz the tower and talk to me goose.
You'll see a lot of familiar faces there if you do decide to go. Kevin's going to be demoing some UFS and Top Gun. Hughes is going to be demoing Chaosmos because he's the only one of us who knows how to play it well enough to teach it. Giggles is going to be demoing some Top Gun. We got Jesse demoing some UFS. You'll see a lot of familiar faces that you guys have seen on the show or other shows, and it'll be a fun time for all. And it's a great local con, and I'd like to see that grow this year. Maybe eventually someday soon, hopefully, we'll have our own events there.
Hey, yeah.
And so that's the RockCon this weekend in Rochester. A couple things to wrap up before we're good. Warriors of the Night, I do expect to be sold out by the end of this week. So if you want to get booster boxes of Warriors of the Night, get your orders in because they're going to be gone.
Were you just complaining about how you're getting all these orders after you orders for sealed product after you packed it all up to go to RockCon this weekend?
I did, but I can't resist trying to make a buck.
You're just that kind of masochist. I got it.
I'm sorry that I made orders, Sean.
Let's see. So that's going to be selling out pretty soon. We're going to be offering some new products in our wholesale catalog starting next week. So if your store is interested in ordering from us, make sure if you're from Canada to contact Clint Badger. If you're from north of the Mason-Dixon line, contact Matt Hughes. South of the Mason-Dixon line, get a hold of Scott Gaines. And we'll give you the hookup. We're running a couple specials right now for your stores. If your store purchases $400 and more of product, you're going to get free shipping to your store. In addition, any store who spends $100 is going to get a free playmat. They spend $200, they get a free playmat. So for every $100 they spend, they're going to get themselves a free playmat now through sometime this month. I haven't decided an end date yet for it. Now, please note that they are playmats of Rochester CCG's choice, and we will not be giving out doubles. So you're guaranteed 4 unique playmats.
Nice. And for all of you players out there who might want some new cards or some new product, Rochester CCG still has the best buy list in the business. And you can ship us our cards. They'll get turned around really fast because Sean O'Brien is a freaking maniac. And
He just
get your
doesn't
store
stop
credit.
working.
Never stops.
You never stop working, Sean.
No, if I stop working, I'm probably either dead or eating.
He's actually boxing products with his feet right now. We just can't see.
He's also eating, but not with his mouth.
I got like a Lord Raptor mouth in the middle of my abdomen. I can just shove hot dogs in there whenever I'm getting hungry.
That'd be awesome.
So, yeah, as always, we're looking to grow our store base. We want to have as many stores playing UFS as possible. If your store is on the fence about making their first order with us, we do offer a buyback guarantee for stores now. If you buy product from us, it doesn't sell in 6 months, we're going to buy back what you didn't sell.
Oh, I totally interrupted your spiel. Sorry.
You did. So just let your store know that. If they're hesitant, just let them know about our buyback guarantee, and that'll give them some protection. Anything else, gentlemen?
No,
I'm going to stay on the protection jokes.
All right, let's call it a night. There's going to be no tournament this week in Rochester, and we'll be back next Wednesday after RockCon.
All right.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.